share this. Janaki or Kirba, who's going to share?
I will share.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Janaki, you can share tomorrow.
Okay.
So who is going to share?
Yeah, Kirba, you can share your screen.
Okay. I think you have to permit me.
Yeah, just a moment. Yeah, I have given the permission.
Okay. Let me know once you are able to see my screen.
Yeah, I'm able to see your screen.
So yeah, this is what I created.
Okay, for bank app, you have created account number, account owner, balance type.
Balance, yeah, and date of birth, the account owner.
Okay, and you have created the set methods and get methods since they are private.
That method.
And
Yeah.
you have used a constructor with parameters with all those attributes.
Yeah, only one constructor with all the attributes.
Mhm.
And then one method to get account details.
Okay.
So which prints all the we say attributes, right?
Okay. Okay. You're actually completed the entire flow, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this one is adding amount and this one is withdrawing amount.
Okay. Now I was about to start with this with teaching some more operations. Anyway, you have already completed it. So let's use this and we can tweak some more here and there to make it more clear.
Yeah.
So yesterday we saw something called as variables and the related data types, and there are 4 categories: integral, floating, boolean, and character, right? So you're aware of that, and you have also experienced the default values, how that gets allocated. So coming to that variable name, we have something called as literals. So Kirba, like I'll share the screen for some time. Maybe post that we can start doing an hands-on in your application.
Yeah, sure.
So yesterday we saw about the variables and then the constructor, right? We haven't seen much detail about constructor. So before going into that, I just wanted to tell a few more categories of variable types. So we have addressed how to create the variable, what is the structure of variable, and in that variables we are actually classified into 4. The one is called class variables. The second one is called as instance or object variables. The third one is called your local variables, and the fourth one is called as your static variables. So you have already addressed what is static. So if you have the keyword static in your variable, we call it as static variable. So why do we need static? So the memory will be allocated only once at a global level. So you don't need to explicitly create the value often. For example, I'm doing a increment operation. So int count equal to 0. So right now I have just created a variable. I don't have any static keyword. If I have the static keyword, my value is globally accessible. So I can access it from any method, or I can access it from any part of my class. And I don't need to create any object to access it. So that is the benefit of static variable. So now when I access it, it is globally accessible. So that is why we prefer to have a static related information much predominantly than an object related information in programs by going forward when you experience writing your code. So that is the one reason. And the second thing why we wanted to have the static is whatever object you create, right? For example, if you're creating student object, student s equal to new student. And if I have some object like s dot name, this particular object instance, whenever it is getting destroyed, basically whenever your memory is getting deleted in your backend, in your heap memory, then this particular attribute will not be accessible. So this s object will not be accessible and it will not give you the respective variable name. But in case of static, there is no necessity that your instance is required. So you can have this value throughout your program is getting executed. So the memory will not be deleted. It is globally accessible unless your program gets exhausted, like you're shutting down your program, only then your variable gets exhausted. Till then you can access it anywhere globally. That is the reason we go for static. What is local variables? So local variables are something which you define it within your method, which is not accessible outside your method. So example, say you have class student, and here you have say method student details, and within this, if I create some variable, right? For example, if I'm creating int x equal to 10, some random variable, this particular x equal to 10 is not accessible outside this method. So something which is within this, so whatever you create within this argument, right? Int x comma int y. So all these are accessible only this particular block of code and not outside. Those are called as local variables. So they don't have memory defined outside. So only if you use it within that method, you can access those variables. If you are trying to print your object of x in your system.out.println, if you're trying to print your x value, it is not accessible, and it is like more of a private thing. So you'll not be able to witness this object when you're trying to call it outside your class. That is called local variables. So these are the scope of that particular variable is only within your block or within your piece of code. Okay, so this is not accessible outside your method. Those are called as local variables. So these are used in within the methods. And a third one, instance variable. So what is instance variable? So whatever you declare within your class, like I'm giving this, right? This is static. So I'm creating one more thing called int variable equal to 10. So this is something I have declared within class, right? So whatever variable you define within class and not within method, then those are called as your instance variables. Okay, so this gets instantiated or your object gets created only then. So the object creation can also be called as instantiation. So I might use these or that term, so don't get confused. So whenever your object is getting created and you're trying to access that s.var, only then this particular object has its value. Otherwise, it doesn't have its value. So those are called as instance variables, something you create within class. Okay, so it can be created within method as well as within class. Okay, now coming to class variables. So what is class variables? So these are variables which can be accessed at class level as well as object level. Okay, basically whatever variable you are using it as static keyword, right? That is also called as class variables. So when do we use this? So we use it whenever they are declared inside the class before their usage is coming into picture. And this is accessible within your class as well as within your objects. So most probably this static also falls into class variables. So when you have a static in count, right? If suppose this particular is in the another class and I'm trying to have calling this in class student execution. This is my another class. And in this, if I'm trying to access that count, how can I access it? Since it's static, I just need to have the class name dot count. That's it. So these are class variables. So if you're accessing with the class name with the followed by a reference name with a dot operator, then those are called as class variables. So basically the static variables, if you're invoking into a different class, they're called as class variables. So far any idea, any doubts on the variable types? So because we might need to know this, because whenever you're trying to create a variable within that method and you're trying to access out it, you might get a scope related errors. And that is why I'm making it clear before that. So these are the variables. And one more thing, whenever you're creating the variables, you need to keep in mind how you can create your variables. So always try to follow your camel case and never use any digits. You can use digits, but I prefer not to use digits. But you can only digits, underscore, and the alphabets are preferable to go with the variable names, but always try to use alphabets in a more unique way and that represented in the camel case format. So that is the format you need to go ahead. And if you're and Java is very case sensitive. The first point, if you're creating one thing, say example age, and you're trying to create one more variable with capital AGE, Java will still consider this as a separate one and this as a separate one. It won't consider together as a single variable name. Though for us, it's a single value, but for Java, it's a different one. So it creates a separate memory for this and separate memory for this in the stack. And the value, when you create it through the object, then it gets stored into the heap. So Java is very case sensitive. Even if you're creating a method or if you're creating any object, and if you're just tweaking it. So now, right now I have count as COOUNT. If I remove one, even then it will throw you an error. So be very careful whenever you're creating variable names. Sometimes because of that, you might get compile time errors. So Java is very case sensitive on that. So always try to follow your variable in camel case, your method names in camel case. And second thing, when I wanted to come to here is your constants. So whenever you're trying to create constant, what is constant? So as I said earlier, this is something, a predefined value, which you never wanted to change. Okay, those constants you can always declare in the form of capital letters. Okay, separated with underscores. So basically, for example, in your week, you have 7 days, right? You can actually represent that as week days, or if you wanted to have the constants within that, say I can say it as Monday, Tuesday. All these can be represented in capital form. So whatever something which is constant and you want to use throughout your programming code, in that case, it's always better to have them in capitalized format. So that is the standard we follow in the industry for all the constants. The third one is your literals. So what is these literals? So you right now created the variables, right? So which is count, but you're assigning some value to it. So these values are called as literals. So for example, if you're going with Boolean, what are the literals we can give for Boolean? Can someone say?
True or false?
Yeah. So these are the literals for your Boolean. So if you're going with int, it can accept any kind of value which is greater than 0, or you can also give lesser than 0 with a negative symbol sign. So these are the literals. So these are basically the values where your variable names can store in. And why do we need variable names? Basically, your variables are your references for the human to understand, whereas the system will keep it as a reference for the memory it gets created for that particular variable. So this is static int count 0, right? So this is the count as a reference name it considers, but internally a memory is getting created for this particular variable and where the value 0 gets stored. So variables are nothing but a name which is being created, which actually refers to your memory location, which has your actual data which you're creating or initializing or you're setting it later point of time. So that is why we need variables in our code. Now coming to your operations. So what kind of operations we can do in using these variables? So there are multiple operations, okay? So right now, so far we have witnessed something called equal to in most of the cases where we are assigning some value to that variable. So that is called as assignment operator. So this is something which symbolizes with equal to. So basically, whenever you wanted to define or initialize a value to your variable, we use this equal to symbol. And if you wanted to use some kind of operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, those fall into arithmetic operators. So basically plus, minus, multiplication and division. So these are the operators which we can go ahead, and apart from that you can also have your other two which are called double plus operator and double minus. So what is double plus? This is an increment operator, and the other one is your decrement operator. Why do we need to have this? So basically if you wanted to add anything with just +1, right? So the system, the Java has provided something like instead of giving count equal to count +1, instead of writing this line of code, if you wanted to increment often just with just one value, you can just use this particular ++ and give. So it's just basically you're simplifying your code. Instead of writing as count +1, you're just using double plus operator. And this double plus operator can be used as a suffix or also as a prefix to your variable. So what is the difference? What if I keep it after this and what if I keep it before this? So how this value gets changed is something we're gonna experience with a real like hands-on experience. But right now you just know what is an increment operator. This is basically it increments your value by 1. Basically, you can also use this similarly to your variable to decrement just by 1. Then you can just give that particular value. Okay. So these are the arithmetic operators. So if you wanted to give plus, you can give +1 or -1 into everything. Basically, you can use any kind of operations over here. And you can also have your modulus to get your remainder and the quotient value and use that for the later purpose. For that thing also, you can use your modulus. So these are the arithmetic operators. Now, the third one, so which most probably we might have experienced in most of the cases, which is nothing but the relation operators. So what are the relational operators? Can someone say, if you are aware of?
Greater than, less than.
Yeah, so greater than, less than, double equal to check whether this value is equal to this value, or greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. All these kinds of things fall into your relational operators. So basically we use this predominantly if you want to compare or validate your information. For that purpose, we go with your relational operators. Okay. And so these are the basic things. And apart from that, we have something called bitwise operator, shift operators. So what does these do? So these are basically like which are related to more of your bits, basically byte related operations, right? With zeros and ones. Similarly, you can do that in case of your, if you're predominantly going with the bit related operations. But when you come into your object oriented programming, we can say 99% we never go into this bit operator and shift operator unless you have such use cases in your real-time example. Apart from that, we'll be using only the major operators. Okay. And so far, any questions on the operators? So there's also one more thing called logical operators, which we use it again. So these are the AND operator, OR operator, not. So this is something you'd have learned earlier. So basically AND is something we use often. So which is in Java, we represent with double ampersand. And for OR, we use 2 symbols like this. Okay. And why do we need this? So whenever you're writing some conditions, right, to evaluate, for example, I'm saying if this particular student has got greater than 40 and this particular student is lesser than 45, then I can consider this particular student as pass, or I can say D grade. Okay. So when I'm evaluating base, so some students can get 42 marks. There's a range, right? So whenever you want to evaluate your conditions on range specific, or if you want to validate more than one condition, so not only greater than 40, but also lesser than or equal to 45. In that case, you can actually give this operator, logical operator, so that suppose these 2 conditions are true. So my student should be greater than 40 as well as lesser than 45. Then I can say like he's in the section D. If it's something like he's not lesser than 45, so if I have one more condition like less than 35, then I can say he's failed. So based on each condition, and if we want to group more conditions, then I can use these logical operators. What this OR does? So basically AND is like this condition should also be true, this condition should also be true. So only if both are true, I can say it's a D grade. If anything one fails, then I can't say he's into the D grade. So I'll go and say like he's failed. That's it. So OR operator is something where you can, any one condition is satisfied, we can proceed with. So basically, if the student is greater than 70 or the student is greater than 65, he is into first class. So anything like either greater than 65 or greater than 6. I can also simply write just greater than 65. But I'm just giving you an example. Like if you're having either this condition gets satisfied or this condition, I can still mention him as first class. Then in that case, I can go and use this OR operator. That is why we use this logical operators in Java, mostly when you wanted to do some kind of evaluations. For the shift operator part, I don't want to start right now. It's basically deals with bits transformation, but there might be questions for you if you're planning to write certification on shift operator and logical operator. So I can cover up that in the next class. But right now, to start with your online bank app, to do some kind of calculations, we are good enough to use these operators, good enough to have these variable references. And then the next one is your conditional loops. So let me come up there. So basically you have the variables, you have the operators, but how can you use that? For that, you need to have conditions. So basically, if you're greater than 65, you're first class. If you're greater than 50, you're second class. If you're greater than 40, you're third class. So I'm giving some condition, like if it is, you're in this range. If it is, you are in this range. For that conditions, Java is providing you some kind of conditional operators. So conditional loops or something like that. For that, we have called if condition. Okay. So this is basically you are evaluating one condition. If the age is greater than 18, I'm eligible for voting. So I'm simply writing s.oop for right now to understand. So I'm eligible for voting. Okay. So if suppose I'm not greater than 18, I'm lesser than 18, I'm going to print a statement saying that you're not eligible for voting. S.o.p with not eligible. Okay. So basically, if you're evaluating condition based on this particular criteria, only one condition you have, and if that particular condition is not suitable for your user, then you can go to the else. So I just have one condition. What if I have more than one condition? So I need to say, like, let's take student example. If the student mark is greater than 35, so let's say greater than 80, then he comes into the picture first class. Okay. And now I have one more condition also. So in that case, what I can use is else space if with one more condition. And here I'm giving the condition if the student is greater than 65 and student mark is less than 80, okay, is greater than or equal to, let me keep here, okay. Then I'm giving it as second class. And now I have one more condition. Then I can again write one more else if, and I can write it. And if the student doesn't fall into this greater than 80, doesn't fall into greater than 65 and 80, and doesn't fall into the other condition, then I'll say you are into the failure category. So whenever you have more than one conditions, and for each condition, you have a separate business logic. So whatever I'm writing right now in sys.out.println is just a print statement. But when you write a bigger programs, then you have separate logic. If that condition is true, you need to have some kind of evaluation to be happen, right? So in that case, you write some kind of business logic within this parenthesis. So this is something you need to understand. So the first one is just either this or that, then you go with if else. If you have multiple conditions, then you can go with if, else if, else, else if, else, like that you can go ahead. But you need to have your else block mandatorily. Third one is something called as iteration loops. Okay. So what is iteration? Something you're executing for any number of people without stopping, and you're stopping only on one particular condition if it's getting satisfied. Say right now, whatever I have evaluated here is only for one student. Say this I have to do it for 100 students. So how can I make it as a loop? For that purpose, Java is providing you something called while loop. The other one is for loop. And the other one is do while loop. So it is giving us three kinds of loops. So basically to repeat the same logic for 100 people, then we need to use these loops to get executed. So what is while loop and how does that condition look like? For everything, you need to give some condition. Without condition, it will not execute. First, let us experience the syntax of the while loop, for loop, and the do while loop, so that you can understand how to write some kind of code within that. Okay. So first, let's go with for loop, because that can help you to understand the other two more easily. So the for loop starts with the for keyword, followed by a bracket with 3 conditions separated by semicolon. Okay, and you have an open parenthesis and close parenthesis. Why do we need have 3 conditions, and what are they? So the first one is basically your initialization expression. So where you wanted to have some variable declared, or you want to initialize the variable value with something, that kind of initialization part can be done in the first section. And your second section, you can give your condition or the expression which you wanted to evaluate. Like here you're given student greater than or equal to 80, or greater than 80, or not equal to 10, some kind of conditions, right? So those conditions you can give it in your second group. And the third group is something basically you want to alter your condition. Like basically you want to continue your loop unless this particular condition fails. So basically this is like a supporting expression for your condition to continue your loop, to continue or break your execution. Okay, so this is the 3 sections you have in your for loop. So for example, now I'm saying like I'm going to execute this particular piece of code for 5 people. So I need to initialize the count, right? If I'm going to execute for 5 times, I need to have some value initialized to follow up that continuation. So right now I'm going to create one variable int x, and I'm going to initialize. So whenever you don't initialize, it is not considered. So that is always a best practice to initialize the value. So right now I'm starting with 0. So how many times I'm going to execute this loop? For 5 members, right? So I'm going to give a condition x less than 5. So 0. So your count is starting. Okay, let me keep it 1. So you get it idea. So x lesser than 6. So I'm going to continue the loop till the value x is less than 6. But how do I know my value of x is getting incremented? For that, I'm giving an expression, supporting expression to finalize this, like only 5 times the student is getting executed. For that, I'm incrementing my value every time post my condition is done, or post my this particular piece of code is evaluated for that student. So that whenever my condition is complete, when it goes again for the next execution, my x value right now will be 2. So how does this for loop execution happens? So basically, this is my x value, and this is the condition validated, and this is my increment. So initially, my x value is 1. Now, let like everyone please answer, like if you are not sure. 1 is less than 6. Condition true or false?
Yes.
True.
True. So right now my condition is 2. My x is getting incremented by 1. So earlier my x value is 1. So right now my x value becomes 1 plus 1, 2. So now my x value is initialized with 2. Now am I again coming here and checking 2 is less than 6. So condition is again true or false?
True.
So true. So now the x gets incremented again by 1. It becomes 3. So next it goes with 3. And again it comes 3 is less than 6. The condition is true. It goes with incremented value 4. Next the 4 will be my initial value. And it checks whether 4 is less than 6. Condition 2, it goes with 5. Now my x value is 5. I'm coming here. 5 is less than 6. Conditions again true. My value gets incremented with 6. Now when it coming to here, my condition fails because 6 less than 6 condition is not matching. My condition of for loop gets break and it comes out of the execution. So your execution is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times your code got executed as per your condition. Now you're out of your loop. So this is how your for loop gets executed. So whenever you have some kind of, basically when you start doing some basic programs, you might be confused with your operations, whatever you give here. So always best practice to write and do it before executing in a system, so that you know what logic you're writing, because this logic is something you're going to interpret based on your use case. So be sure how logical you are in your use case. So this is the first syntax for your for loop. Now coming to your while loop. To do the same thing, right? To do the same kind of execution, the while loop has syntax called while is a keyword followed by your condition, which is basically your condition or the expression. And within that, you have your entire piece of code which you wanted to execute, execution code. So if I want to rewrite this for loop, right, how can I write? So basically in while, I'm going to write only condition. So what is my condition here? X less than 6. But I need to initialize it, right? So what I'll do is I'll initialize the value outside my for loop, x equal to 0. And here I just give x less than 6. And within that, I need to give my supporting condition, right? So where can I give that supporting condition? I can give the supporting condition after my logic gets executed. I'm giving my condition as x plus plus. So the same for loop, whatever you have given, we are actually segregating into 3 pieces. You're initializing in the first line, you're giving your condition in the while loop, and your pre-supporting execution or post-supporting execution, you're giving it in the within the while loop. So this is the syntax for your while block. The third one is your do while. So what happens here is if your condition is not satisfied, it will not go into your logic and it will not work. Whereas the do while, it will help you to execute your code at least once without validating your condition. So how is it? So the condition of the do while looks like, first do it. Just go and do your statement. It will open your thing. And within that, you can have your piece of code which you wanted to execute. So I'm just giving business logic. And post first execution, I'm validating my condition, where in the while loop, I'm going to give my condition. So if your execution is happening here for 5 times, if your execution should happen more than that, like there is no pre-check, like here you're doing a pre-check, only if my 0 is less than 6, I'm going to execute it. If there is no pre-check, in such situations, you can go for do while and you can execute it for the first time, and post that you're evaluating your condition. Say example, you're writing your examination. So first time you can go ahead and you can write. And if you're after that, after writing, if you're appearing for your exam for the second time, you're not allowed. So I'm giving a condition here for the second time. Like when you come again, you should be like you haven't written even once. Only then I'll be allowing you. If you have already written once, you're not allowed here. So something like a precondition, something to evaluate it for only for the first time and not for the rest of the flow, then you can actually go with this do while loop. So these are the 3 kinds of loops the Java is providing. Okay. And there is something called switch case, which I can execute little later. So right now we'll use these things to build our bank application with these operations. So I'm just summarizing it. We can quickly join the second invite and we'll do the hands-on. So variables, in our variables, you should always go with camel case and try to use most of alphabetic rather than your digits. And Java is very case sensitive. It can be either variable name, method name, or constants name. Try to use the same thing throughout the program. If you try to change anywhere, it will give you a compile time error. And then the types of variables, the class variable, which you're trying to access the static variables from one class to the other class, then they are called as class variables. And if something you create an object and access them, basically something which is defined within your class, then you are called as instance variables. And local variables are something you define within your methods. And scope is only within the method and not outside. And a static variables are something which can be accessed globally and the memory gets created only once. And we don't need to worry about the memory usage here. And these can be created both within the method, within the class. So wherever you want, you can define your static variables. And your constants are something you can always need to have it with capital case. And your operations are something like assignment operator. These are something which we'll address right now in your programming practice. And how to use your loops, like conditions, like if else if block, and these blocks, while block, for loop, and do while. Let's do this through the application. So any questions, or can we join the second invite and start with the hands-on?
Sneha, one quick question, like the static variable is, we can access using the object itself, right? Like
we can access through object, but that is not required. that is not the best practice to access through object, because why are we going with static is we wanted to access it without using the object. That is why we are creating it under the specific keyword called static, and where we don't need the object dependency. If you still access with object, then there is no purpose to use static, right? You can just use a normal variable and you can create through the object and access them.
Okay. If you want to use that static variable outside the class, then we need to use class name dot that static variable.
Not outside the
name,
class,
right?
into a different class.
Into a different class.
And
If
then
it
you
is in
have
the
to give
same
class
class,
name dot variable name.
if it is in the same class, we can just directly
We can
call
just
the
give the
variable
variable name. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
If it's within the class, you don't need an object. You can just directly print that particular variable or the method in your wherever you wanted to use it. But if you have it in a different one, you can just reference it through the class name dot and the reference variable name or the method name. But if same thing, you're trying to access an instance related object, which is not static, then you have to create an object and access it.
Yeah, understood. Thanks, Neha.
Okay. Yeah. So here for the do while, right, I didn't give you the sample. So for the same scenario, if I'm trying to write a condition, I need to have the do block. And here in the while condition, I can give the condition like my x is less than 6. And I need to initialize my value. So I'll initialize the value x is equal to 0 here. And here within the do block, I'll have the business logic. So for the same scenario, you can either go with for, you can go with while, and you can go with do while. But the decision is again with you, which one you wanted to prefer as per your scenario. But there are 3 options available for you. Okay, so are we good here, or any questions, clarifications, or we can just start with the hands-on? Okay, then could you all please join for the second invite? We can go with the hands-on and we'll complete our online backend.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.